I was basically, like, as I said, not allowed to talk to an attorney until right before they were putting me into a cop car to take me on an airplane to a federal holding facility, or the Canadian federal holding facility for immigration. These people are totally corrupt. They denied and covered up a political asylum request. So my phone gets cut off. They disconnected. Someone else was on the other line. They pressed down on the button or whatever they did to disconnect my call to leave a message with that attorney. And then they said, "You don't have any time left. You have to come with us. You're going in." And then I don't know if they told me right away or what. They took me to, and you know what? Since I had microchips implanted in my body, it wasn't like Russ Haugen was so thrilled with the song "God Bless America." What was going on? You know, somebody over in the United States is listening in. NSA, you know, is listening in on this horribly sad and horrific thing of a torture victim of the United States singing "God Bless America." Or "America the Beautiful." So what did they do? Make a quick call over to Russ and say, "Go ahead and talk to her now. See what she wants." Because that's the only time he ever came over to me. Why should an American patriotic son move him at all? All he was doing was working with the United States. So then they tell me to take my belongings. Nobody once said anything about parental kidnapping, and that was never an issue. That was something that the U.S. wrote into some papers to sound slanderous. And Canada always knew that that wasn't an issue because they had my personal papers and my documents from CPS and social services that showed that there was nothing wrong. And the only time Russ said anything or hesitated, or anybody at that jail ever gave me the time of day, actually it was a different guard, it wasn't Russ. The only time that any guard or soldier that gave me the time of day was when I said something about the FBI, how I'd filed a misconduct complaint against the FBI. And then they stopped and said, "FBI?" So what do you mean about the FBI? Like, basically, they suddenly stopped. Like, I told them, I said, "I'm trying to get political asylum." I said, "Why am I in jail for trying to get political asylum?" And I said, "I made a misconduct complaint against the FBI, and I've had problems ever since." And it really went back further than that. But then one of the guards stopped and looked very seriously at me and wanted to know more about the FBI. But exactly why was I in jail when I should have been with my son and preparing to go to a hearing for political asylum? Basically, he was like, "Tell me more." Like, he looked kind of freaked out because I think they already knew that, I mean, the FBI was talking to them. So if that guard knew that the FBI was talking to them, and the FBI was part of the problem, it starts making the FBI's word look really crappy. It starts making their motives look not so great anymore. So then they drove me in a cop car. This guy's like, "Tell me everything you can in 15 minutes. And I thought at the time that he wanted to get my story, maybe he'd help me. And in a way I think, no, he's kind of making fun of me. I told my son, "Don't worry, Oliver, it'll be just 15 minutes and I'll see you again." And then this cop, "You have 15 minutes to tell me everything that you can." He drives me over to an airplane, and they spent money to fly me to the Penticton, to the Vancouver immigration detention facility. This huge holding cell. Huge holding facility for people who are illegal immigrants of all kinds. You know, nobody was there for political asylum. If someone was there for political asylum, it's because Canada created a fictitious story about how it had nothing to do with political asylum. And these people spent money. I mean, how much was the gas on that airplane to fly me? Thanks, Mike Middleton. How nice and thoughtful of you to sponsor me having a little airplane ride from Penticton, Canada to Vancouver, Canada. So your bitchy daughter and entire horrid family can keep climbing up the little ladder that you aspire to climb, along with your Canadian friends and United States friends who've been doing favors for each other for a long time. So I get a plane ride. To an immigration detention facility where I was held with a bunch of Asian women, well, 3 of them in that room at the time, and they seemed nice. I mean, I felt sorry for them, and I thought they were I wanted to help however I could. So I tried to explain things at the best that I could. But the entire time there were all these people behind the glass, all these people waving at me and looking cheerful, like they're glad to see me, they're happy to see me. And here I am in a holding facility when my son was taken from me and I've been tortured, and yet I'm trying to exercise in their room, playing checkers with the Chinese people that they hauled into their facility. And singing. I'm trying to be cheerful. And they all act like it's great. And at least I wasn't tortured there. That's the one time that I was in Canada that I was not tortured. When I was in the immigration holding facility. Because everywhere else that I was in Canada, in Penticton, my son and I were being zapped here and there. And again, because we were out from under being cooked all day and all night, it was totally different. It was just like having isolated hits here and there. But still, any kind of torture is too much torture. And Canada signed a document that said that there will be no torture from Canada. And if they do something wrong, they can be held accountable by the United Nations Court. They should be held accountable for what they did, and also for colluding with the United States. I was in this Vancouver, they basically, from the plane, after they dropped me, after the plane landed, I was then put into a cage in a van. It was like a metal wire cage that you would put a dog in. And they had me go into this cage in a van and drove me to the federal detention site. Is there any way to annul that union that England is supposedly blessing? Because I really think that they got the wrong people in in the wrong position. I'm not saying the wrong people like I'm the right person. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you have criminals that have committed crimes of torture included with others, you know, in really conspicuous and disgusting ways, who just get off scot-free. And crazy, because then we even have some Christian stations that try to promote her like they're a Christian family. I was in that holding facility for a few days to a week. I'd have to check back on my notes. And after that, they basically said, you're going to a hearing for not political asylum. They were sending me to a hearing for a charge. I got charged with attempt to illegally enter Canada. And Russ Haugen thought that I did enter Canada illegally, like without the right papers. Because he was getting information from the U.S. who had stolen my birth certificate, and they thought that I didn't have all my right papers. So they assumed that I had entered Canada illegally. They changed their story from attempt to become a citizen illegally to attempt to enter Canada illegally. And then they put me into this hearing with accusations of my having committed some kind of immigration crime when I had gone to Canada asking for political asylum. And I will talk about what happened in that hearing tomorrow. And my family needs support from decent people in the United States. The government seems to be mainly corrupt. At least the people who've had control over what happens to us have been corrupt and criminal. And whoever is decent in this country, because there are some people still, I'm not exaggerating when I say it would be great to have your support. And I mean that for other countries too. There are probably some people in Canada who can't believe that this happened with Canada, and maybe they don't understand all the reasons why. But if there are a few Canadians who are decent, then that support would also be appreciated. And basically we're still being tortured. Not to the levels that it was happening before, but it doesn't matter. Any torture is too much torture. And the fact that this is being used to obstruct me from even, attending my college and getting things done, it's unacceptable. We basically need to have a domestic and international group investigate crimes. So tomorrow I will talk about what corruption there was in the courthouse in Canada, what kinds of tricks they were trying to pull there, and then how they tried to set me up to make it look like I had not just committed an immigration offense. Then after they kicked me over the border, they tried to get me a second time, claiming that I had committed an offense of trying to go back in after I was told not to, which was a lie. And all these people need to be held accountable. They all need to go to trial.